Now, as a pastor, I don't know what to say after this. Maybe I wasted my whole life, right? Friends, the topic that's been given to me has been on missions and the relationship between holiness and social holiness in relationship to mission. If you were here yesterday, you note that I made 2 points. One was the Moravians, one of the key factors that drove them was holy living. Secondly, the point I made also, the Methodists who learned from Moravians recognized that holiness had to be the center of the church life. And that was a secret of the revival that could be sustained for 100 years. So immediately you can see the relationship between holiness and mission. That's the first thing I want to say. The further comment that a few further comments, I've been asked to comment on holiness, personal holiness and social holiness. As far as I know, the term social holiness was actually coined by John Wesley, again, the founder of the Methodist movement. He raised the question of the fact that you just cannot be talking about personal holiness in terms of your individual life, because that can be very negative. But you need also to talk about social holiness, because social holiness means, what does it mean to love my neighbor as myself? Friends, I want you to think about this. If you're only thinking about personal holiness, you don't actually become a good Christian. You become a good Pharisee. Think about that one, okay? And if you notice that there are some churches who's always on personal holiness, you find that they become very conservative, very pharisaical. People are not attracted to those churches. And there are probably 1 or 2 examples in Singapore. Again, no, don't ask me which one. Okay. But you'll find that you need to balance personal holiness about living a godly life yourself and living a loving life towards your neighbor. That is how holiness must be practiced. Okay, let me give very quick illustrations about how then it impacts mission. Early Methodism grew. Again, I'm sorry to use this illustration, but this is a very relevant one. As Wesley required every one of his converts to attend class meetings where holiness was central, they began to produce a holy generation. And at the beginning, and that was a time coincided with the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution in England. And if you look, we actually still have records where employers in the early Industrial Revolution in England, when they start looking for employees, they start looking for Methodists. Why? Because Methodists were honest, would not steal their tools and take it home and sell it. Methodists would work hard because that was part and parcel of holiness. And consequently, what happened was that holiness began to impact the Industrial Revolution. Side by side with it, many of the poor people were getting very badly paid. It was the Methodists together with Baptists and Congregationists, who were 3 groups who were affected by revival. They actually spearheaded the trade union movement. Do you know how trade union movement began in those days? You went to the Methodist or Baptist chapel, not the churches, because you're not allowed to call yourself a church unless you're the Anglican. Is Bishop Randy still here? So you went to Methodist chapel, right? You went to chapel, you started with preaching and prayer, and after finishing preaching and prayer, you get down to union business. And that was how the early trade unions started. And they began to bring a lot of reforms, forced through, pressurized for reforms for the poor. Consequently, Methodism produced, as one modern deputy prime minister puts it in his biography of Wesley, they produced a hard-working and industrious, honest working class who became the backbone of industrial and imperial England in the 19th century. You want to know why England became the most powerful nation in the world in the 19th century? Look at Methodist history. I'm not saying that because I'm a Methodist, but I'm saying that because it's a fact. Of course, I'm a Methodist. Now, but again, as I reminded yesterday, modern Methodism have forgotten most of these things, and that is to our shame. But those lessons are similar in the 20th century. If you can lay your hands on a simple book written by David Martin, who is Emeritus Professor of Sociology from the London School of Economics, it's a little book, only about 100 pages, called Forbidden Revolutions. David Martin, Forbidden Revolutions. He looks at two groups of people. One, the Pentecostals in Latin America. And he found that the effect of the preaching of the gospel on the poor people in the favelas, in the slums of Latin America, had exactly the same effect as Wesley preaching on the poor people in the 18th century. When a rich woman, Catholic woman, wants to employ a house helper, what does he look for? He looks for a Pentecostal, because a Pentecostal will work hard and won't steal your things and take it home. And he says, and then he looks at what happened behind the Iron Curtain when Eastern Europe was under tremendous pressure and persecution. It was the Catholic groups, it was the Baptist groups who, by being faithful, even within their very limited social space, by willing to say no to the oppression and persecution, began to give space for people to express their protests as human beings. And his final comment on both groups was, both groups, working from the margins of society, began to transform the social landscape of their societies. That is mission for you.